Malgré les conséquences désastreuses du changement climatique en Afrique, il y a lieu d'être optimiste. C'est pourquoi la Semaine africaine du climat a été mise en place comme une plateforme permettant aux parties prenantes de discuter des solutions d'action climatique régionales et de forger des partenariats régionaux. Bienvenue à ce décryptage sur Africa 24. Notre invité de cette édition est le Docteur Richard Munang, directeur régional adjoint du Bureau Afrique des Nations Unies. Docteur Richard Munang, bienvenue sur Africa 24. Que représente la Semaine africaine du climat dans la grande mobilisation qui est faite autour des problématiques liées aux effets du changement climatique?
Very important time to be talking about climate change. We are about 50 days to the Conference of Parties called COP27. And if you look across the entire African continent, we are faced with challenges. Just a week ago, a mother watched his brother washed away by floods in Lagos. As if that was not enough, 22 million people as we speak today are suffering from droughts in the Horn of Africa. And the reality is that when you look at these issues, they're only going to get worse from what the science is telling us. So when you look at what is happening here today in Libreville, Gabon, called the Africa Climate Week, which started today, it's actually to galvanize support, to bring everyone together, because the issue of climate change is no longer that of governments alone. It's that of every citizen in the African continent and in the globe. And so when Africa come together, they're not only coming together, especially as what has demonstrated today, they come to foster a voice that is a common voice, but at the same time also showcase practical examples that have been utilized in communities. For example, we are seeing conversations today discussing how youth can become the pillar. We are seeing conversation today on how local financing to support communities to be able to build their resilience, to be able to afford inputs, whether it is agricultural inputs or whether it is finance for you to start their businesses. And sharing those experiences here today help not only to give information to millions of people who have never known how adaptation can be done, but at the same time to reshape Africa's narrative as we move towards COP27.
Bien que l'Afrique ne soit responsable que de 3,8% des émissions de gaz à effet de serre, elle paie le prix le plus élevé, comme en témoignent les sécheresses, les inondations et autres fléaux qui impactent sur les économies et la vie sociale. De façon pratique, comment aidez-vous le continent à améliorer sa résilience face à tous ces chocs et surtout à porter son plaidoyer pour une meilleure compensation financière de ce que le continent subit comme effet néfaste des changements climatiques?
There is an African proverb that goes thus, that if you close your eyes to facts, you will learn through accidents. So the facts of climate change are clear, and these facts have actually been put in place through different reports. And the United Nations Environment Program actually leads this pathway of providing the science that showcases where we are as a global community and also where we are as Africa. And so UNEP leads the charge in terms of informing the entire world, because the role of the United Nations Environment Program is to do three things: to inform with the best science and knowledge, to inspire people to usher them to action, and to convene the entire world to be able to rally effort towards building a resilient society and ensuring that environmental sustainability becomes the norm. So what UNEP has actually done, it produces what is called emissions gap report. So in simplistic terms is, we are emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere that is causing this warming. And what report after report, UNEP have produced over 10 of those reports. Every year it produces those reports to inform negotiations. And those negotiations are actually informed by these reports, but also help to catalyze the urgency of what the global community needs to do. And more importantly, environmental solutions are business solutions. Environmental solutions are actually opportunities to create opportunities for youth. And therefore, what we have been doing in UNEP is to use data that showcases that a youth in a community, whether in Kenya or Cameroon or Togo or Gabon or in South Africa, that turn simple agricultural waste from corn husk or banana peelings into what is called briquettes, which are actually replacing charcoal to reduce indoor pollution. That data can then be used to inform policy making in countries that can help put incentives in place, like tax breaks, like innovative financing through banks that can be given to youth. So the point I am bringing this up is to showcase that UNEP has been doing a lot, producing the science that help inform negotiating positions and showcasing where the world is heading so that action can be taken, and at the same time, showcasing the gap in what is called adaptation gap report, that we need to close the gap of finance. Because as we speak today, last year, in November, UNEP produced what is called an adaptation gap report, which shows that the finance that is needed, especially in the African continent, is supposed to be 10 times bigger than the amount that comes.
Monsieur le directeur régional, vous êtes très actif sur les médias sociaux. Comment, d'après vous, les médias sociaux peuvent-ils servir la cause de la préservation de l'environnement et la lutte contre les changements climatiques?
Social media is actually, I call it the best thing that ever happens in the 21st century. When we were growing up in the 80s and 90s, we never had an opportunity to engage with people we don't know. And today, when you look at a continent of 1.4 billion citizens, it's clear that the solution from a youth in Nigeria can actually be copied by a youth in Cameroon, a youth in Kenya. How? Through leveraging social media space, whether it is LinkedIn or it is Instagram or Twitter or it is Facebook. The communication of solutions do not have boundaries anymore. And so leveraging social media, especially in a continent where we have tech-savvy youth who are on their mobile phones every day, if you want to pass information that can actually be uptaken by the broader community, then social media becomes the space because you can reach many youth. But more importantly is social media is leveraged, especially I leverage it to also inspire youth, because we are in a continent today where we have over 60% of the youthful population unemployed. And yet they also start to lose hope that the continent doesn't belong to them. And so one of the aspects that have been a big problem and why I leverage social media to pass the climate information and climate solutions to young people is that climate change has been communicated from the perspective of a narrative of sorry state rather than a narrative of opportunity.
L'Afrique compte aujourd'hui plus de 1,3 milliard d'habitants et 60% de cette population est jeune. Comment mettre à profit ce potentiel dans la lutte autour de la préservation de l'environnement?
Actually, the youth are the leaders of today. The reality is that if you look across the entire African continent today, truth be told, the innovative solutions when it comes to climate space are led by the youth. When you look across the entire African continent today, the most vocal that talk about what needs to be done in communities to build their resilience are the youth. They are the leaders of now. But one of the things that I think you've asked, a very important question that I think I need to articulate, is that we talk finance and resources in terms of cash, where the biggest resource is what I call human capital. Human capital is the skills of young people. Human capital is the ability of young people to be able to turn their talents into skills. And that is what should be talked about. It's sovereign capital. And therefore, investing in the youth is investing in climate action.
Le changement climatique va provoquer des dégâts à travers l'Afrique et ils affecteront chaque personne du continent. Quels sont les changements politiques nécessaires pour enrayer la crise?
Actually, Africa is a leader when it comes to climate change policy. And I would like to really stress on this because I think that sometimes the discussion around climate change is from an apathetic perspective. It's from the perspective that we are not doing enough as a continent. I think in the entire world today, there are what are called nationally determined contributions. These are simple plans that in 2015, when the Paris Climate Change Agreement was adopted by over 197 member states, Africa submitted those plans showcasing their priority areas: agriculture, clean energy, transport, forestry. And they ratified these in parliaments across the entire African continent. And as we speak today, 52 out of 54 countries have ratified. That shows that they saw the inherent opportunities. And then, before COP26, countries were submitting what is called revised ambition, where they want to take their countries in terms of building resilience, in terms of providing opportunities for their communities. And 43 African countries have submitted those revised ambitions, more than any other country in the world. What that means is the continent, when it comes to policy, leads the world. The challenge is in how to turn those policies to meaningful, realistic actions on the ground that empower communities, that creates opportunities for the youth. And that is where the issue is. And one of the best policies that need to be put forward is that if you look at adaptation finance in the continent is already spending 20% of the entire GDP of the continent.
Monsieur Richard Munang, merci d'avoir répondu aux questions d'Africa 24. Mesdames, Messieurs, merci et restez à l'écoute pour d'autres émissions sur Africa 24.